Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Kayla Unfiltered, the Housing Call-In Show. I'm your host, Kayla Andrade. When there is news, when there is misinformation, when there is a call to action, we go live. It's twice this week so far, guys, because housing providers, tenants, policymakers, taxpayers deserve the full story, not the filtered ones. Tonight is a big one. We have a major developments around Bill 60, serious questions being raised about CUPE's leadership, and growing conversations about auditing organizations that are receiving public money. And when the NDP is out there pushing false narratives that mislead Ontarians, someone needs to step up, set the record straight. And that's what we're going to do tonight. And I'm not doing it alone. Tonight we have Varun, and I'm new feet. Varun, you got to speak up and say your last name. I want people to know
No problem. My
who
last
you
name is
are.
Sriskanda.
There you go. He is a realtor, property management company owner, lawyer license candidate, and a board member of Solo, the small ownership landlords of Ontario. Varun is a powerful advocate who understands the system from every angle. We're also joined by Jackie Thomas, a respected realtor with Remax Professionals in the GTA, a multi-family landlord, and someone who has built her real estate portfolio from the ground up. Jackie is committed to financial literacy, balancing housing, conversations, and real solutions that work for both landlords and tenants, and together we're breaking it down. What Bill 60 really means. We're seeing everything online right now. Why the NDP's messaging doesn't really line up with the facts. Why transparency and accountability matters, especially when unions and nonprofits rely on taxpayer dollars. How landlords across Ontario are organizing faster and stronger than ever. And as always, show it's about you, your stories, your experiences, and your voice in the comments. Before we jump in a quick reminder, nothing discussed tonight is legal advice. We are sharing personal opinions, lived experiences, and our right for free expression. All right, let's get into it. This is Kayla Unfiltered, and we're just getting started. Guys, thanks so much for coming on tonight. It's Thursday. We're all excited. We're watching TikToks and Facebook posts. It's happening. It won't go away. There's a spark that's been ignited in Ontario, and I think it's called common sense. I don't know. What do you guys think?
We agree with you.
Yeah, 100%. Always with you, Kayla. Yeah, the common sense thing disappeared for a while, but I think it's starting to come back, and not everyone is ready for it. Not everyone's ready for it to come back.
Well, you know what? I think like if you look at it, like we waited for so long. I've been doing this advocating for 15 years. Varun, you've been right beside me on TVO. Me and you right there, Steve Bacon, and like the highlight when you get your makeup done and speak with the other the opposition of the tenant unions. And this is where we got our first experience dealing with the tenant union. So as most of you may know, we have Acorn, the tenant union, but we got one that came out of nowhere, and that was the tenant union with, I think her name is Shara. I have a video. I'm going to show you who she is in a minute. But we sat there in the green room going like, hey, like, you know, how's your funding model? You know, we struggled as a landlord. Like, oh, she's like, we just got a donation from CUPE, $5,000. I'm like, really? Like CUPE, like Ontario, like 700,000 members dealing with public. What? I was mad. What did you think about that, Varun?
I was shocked. I didn't know that CUPE gave. I didn't know CUPE, first of all, funded their own political goals using the union dues of hardworking Ontarians like that. I also had no idea, and honestly, I don't know the number, but I do know for a fact I have many CUPE tenants, and I got many landlord clients that CUPE. How many of those 700,000 member paying CUPE members are actually small landlords themselves? And did they vote for this? I'm pretty sure they didn't approve of their member dues going to Acorn and tenant unions, things that counteract everything they're working to save and invest. And their own union is now acting against it. I was shocked. I didn't know that. but I'm glad that we're finally starting to peel the onion a little bit, and
Well,
as you peel the layers, it stinks.
someone's going to be crying. Someone's going to be
Yeah.
crying. And you
Yeah.
know what? Like, these are the couple of videos that I have, and I'll try to. I may not play the entire thing because I don't want to get you guys. You've probably seen a lot of this stuff online. But when we look at what has happened based on the behavior of these tenants inside the gallery, throwing things, playing with a whistle. The president of Acorn is like, what? Like, he was acting like he had some type of hearing disability when the security guard was telling him to leave. We had an individual throwing things. And this is where we had this video. And I just want to give you guys a little buffer so you guys can know what we know. So here's a little video for you.
Of a protest at Queen's Park, Premier Doug Ford is calling for a prominent Ontario union leader who was there to be fired from his job. Less than a day after protesters shouted down the legislature to fight the government's Bill 60 rental law, Ford fired back, calling for Ontario CUPE leader Fred Hahn to be fired. The Premier also appeared to threaten retaliation against the groups involved in the protest, accusing them of being paid professional protesters. He was also upset over someone throwing something from the gallery.
Isn't that unbelievable? These people get invited into the gallery, and they start throwing stuff, hit one of my ministers in the head.
I don't know what he's talking about, first of all. Like, he talked about going after charities and auditing charities. Like, I don't know who he's talking about. Is he going to go after like the food banks? To me, what I saw today was the Premier getting a little unhinged. Okay, he's a little unhinged.
So this is where you would sit there and go, like, she's blinking a lot. Like, something tells me, like, why is she talking about the food banks, right? Like, that was the part where it was like, are we on to something with the food banks?
Right, Kayla.
Like, it's almost like we have to put a puzzle together, right? And this is where, before the bill had passed, this is the NDP's message. Let's listen in.
Ontario has never been more hard for working people. Doug Ford's jobs disaster. It has left hundreds of thousands of families lying awake at night worrying about what's next. Bill 60 is open season on renters. Corporate landlords can now raise your rent as high as they want. And when you can't afford that increase, they can evict you. No recourse, no protection, nothing. Is Doug Ford building the affordable homes that we desperately need? No. Just more power for wealthy corporate landlords to squeeze every last dollar out of you. It's unbelievable, and I refuse to accept it. Today, we're going to bring forward an Opposition Day motion that's going to do a few really important things. First, it's going to withdraw Bill 60. So guess what? We're going to give them another opportunity to withdraw that legislation and repeal it right away. We're going to propose that they bring in real rent control. We're going to end bad faith evictions, and we're going to build affordable housing. Life is getting more expensive for.
So I want to pause there. I want you guys to really recognize the person to the left of her and the one to the right. One to the right. So just take that vision there. Now, based on Varun, Jackie, I'm going to remove it now, but based on what she was saying in her messaging, the false narrative that was happening. What did you guys think?
Well, they're not getting rid of rent control, so why would she even bring that up? Why are they pushing that? Why are they pushing this to scare tenants and only add fuel to the existing fire? Let's stick to the facts, folks. Let's stick to the facts that were announced that evening on the 24th.
And it was a lot of details that were, presented in Bill 60. And again, it's looking at the fact that she's teaming up with tenant unions. She's teaming up with Acorn. They are in there. They're using their platforms that obviously they have. They're right on. I'll send you guys a link. I'm going to put this in the chat here because I know we're probably got some tenants that are probably like trolling me, which is totally cool. Like, I think it's just about education. So I'm going to put the link to the tenant union, which is literally saying, hey, come to our protest, and if you have 40 people, we're going to get you a bus. I'm like, Varun, you've had protests with Solo. Were you able to fund a bus as a greedy landlord association? Could you get a bus?
No, we definitely don't have the money for buses, unfortunately. You're going to have to find your own way down to the protest. We don't have unions backing us up, Kayla. Look, we'll take the money. Look, if you want to donate and if you want to help fund our cause, we will take a donation. I'm not going to say no to that. But we just don't have unions. We don't have legal aid funding landlord causes. We got legal aid funding the tenant unions, right? You go to court, you go to LTB, and you get a lawyer on the day of your hearing. But if you're a small mom and pop landlord, you get nothing. You get yourself on the hot seat right there. Adjudicators talking to you. Landlord, what's next? I don't know what to say. But the tenants all get a lawyer. The tenants all get a lawyer for free. It's so unfair. We don't get the funding. We don't get the funding. We don't get all that. We don't get a bus at the protest. We have no money. It amazes me that tenants can put a bus together to protest. Doesn't anyone have to go to work? Like, come on.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I said. Like, I'm like, we're the landlords.
The same thing too.
I'm like, landlords are at work.
That's what Doug said.
That's what Doug said.
It's hard to argue with him. It's hard to disagree with him. And it's hard. Like, I see these tenant representatives and I want to have the discussions with them. And Kayla, you and me have in that green room just before we got our makeup date on TVO. We had, I think, a professional kind of a friendly chat with the tenant union rep. Anytime we try engaging in conversation, their actions are so aggressive, violent, rude, just scary, intimidating, entitled. Like they at one point organized a protest and held protests outside the properties of the landlords in the various neighborhoods where the landlords live, in their own personal homes, in front of where their families live, and their families are far removed from the businesses that the person is in. It's not fair. You don't go to someone's house like this, but that's what Acorn did in Toronto.
Well, this is perfect. I'm glad you led into this because I got this video. I'm going to show it again from our other episodes that we had, but this is from our tenant unions, either Acorn or tenant unions, and this is what they've done to the Federation of Rental Housing Providers of Ontario. This is what they did.
Tony Irwin?
Yeah, he's just busy right now. Sorry, guys. Do you mind just meeting outside? No.
Sorry, no. Yeah, that's Tony Irwin. Guys, that's Tony Irwin. Let's go. Hey. Hi, Tony. We're a group of renters here. Can you please step outside? We want to have an interview with you. Has anyone told you look like Gavin Weston?
I feel so sad seeing this every time.
You're creating an evictions pipeline from the LTV to the encampment. You, with your crony Doug Ford, are passing this bill at record pace, like all consultations have been waived off. Why should we work at your schedule?
And our demands are that you rescind Bill 60.
You're a busy man. Let's just finish it here and then go.
Why? You're laughing in the face of tenants across Ontario? No. Somebody get that on record.
I understand. I think it's important though, mutual respect.
Tenants already have minuscule protections. So you tell me how this bill is respectful by your standards of respect.
Right.
Please speak.
Free lawyer.
Extremely rude behavior.
It's evicting families with children on the way. How is that appropriate behavior?
Right? Is it going to be the seniors who you kick out, or is it going to be the ODSP people? What will give you the most profits? I'm sure you have analysts on this.
One of your board members who represents Pine Ridge, they just tried to evict someone for being 98 cents behind on their rent.
Yes.
I'm not aware of that.
Okay.
What are you aware of?
Well,
Do you know the homeless stats? Well, it's doubled since 2022.
So you're advocating for more evictions and you don't know the homeless stats?
I'm advocating for a fair system.
No, you're advocating for evictions.
It's not fair, and you're making it less fair.
What do you think will happen if you create a tenant blacklist? Do you think they will end up in encampments, or do you think they will magically find a home somehow?
I respect people's rights to have different views. I think it's important in our democracy to have that. You have your opinions, your positions. I have mine.
How is it a democracy when you influence the government so heavily?
How is it a democracy if all consultations get waived off?
We have to get back to business here. We have a...
No, business, where you evict people is not business for us. It is a direct threat to our communities, to our homes. That is not business for us. It's very personal.
Kill Bill 60! Kill Bill 60! Power! Power! Power!
Like, I get mad every time I see that. And I think Jackie, is that the first time you've seen it, Jackie?
No, I've seen it
Okay.
across socials. I just, in the climate that we're in right now, it's just the audacity to walk into to storm into someone's office and behave that way is just absurd. And just really showing how people, it's just that character. It's that mindset of tenants versus landlords that is absolutely insane to me. And then to have the direct correlation that, you know, if we make any adjustments to the RTA, that we are promoting homelessness.
Mm-hmm.
That just really yanks my chain.
Well, and this brings into, like, this is what we're seeing on different platforms, like this image right here. Ontario's bill passes eviction rules tightening non-payment termination possible in just 7 days. When did that happen, guys? Because the landlords, like, and we're at fault too. Some realtors, some landlords are out there and they're all excited because there's actually a bill after 15 years of advocating that there is a bill that actually protects the small landlords against not the people that can't pay, but the people that won't pay. And this is that, you know, are we afraid to say anything and make these type of changes? Because deep down, 7 days earlier for filing is nothing. It really is nothing. The only thing it's doing is encouraging the tenants to make their payment before that 7-day mark, but they know that landlords are willing to make a payment arrangement with their tenants. Be a good, and shout out to the good tenants that are out there, but 7 days, it's a 186. I like to see it go into the landlord and tenant board with a little bit of a change of how making it easier for landlords to withdraw their application, because I don't want to see this backlog the landlord and tenant board even more, because people are a little bit quick on the dial, and they're going to be, because they know there's such a massive growing of tenant unions that are promoting rent strikes, right? This tenant union, I'm going to show another video and then we'll get more into the Bill 60 so that we can like snip all this misinformation in the butt of what people are actually like thinking, because this misinformation is spreading like crazy. But when you work with the tenant unions and how they're trying to get more tenants to follow them, and they're going to try to take part in a rent strike movement. And that's what this association was doing when we were on tenant TVO, was to encourage more buildings to take part in a rent strike movement in protest of above the guideline rent increases. And so a lot of the small landlords don't do it because like $200, all this paperwork, we don't really do it. The big guys usually do it. Why? Because they got bigger buildings, bigger problems, bigger expenses. But this is the girl who is, as a tenant union, who was the one who told us that she had received funding from CUPE. And this is her messaging. And got to give her credit. She is a good speaker. Listen in.
I want to be clear. Bill 60 is Doug Ford's declaration of war on tenants.
Remember, she was the one on the left of the NDP leader.
Instead of listening to the millions of Ontario renters struggling to keep a roof over their heads, Doug Ford is in the pockets of the landlord lobby, the biggest and most wealthy corporate landlords in this province, because they are the only ones who want the changes in this bill. How do I know? Because Doug Ford isn't even trying to hide it. When this PC government announced the changes to the landlord and tenant board that Bill 60 will bring forward, he wasn't standing beside tenants, as the NDP here is today. He was standing beside the leader of the landlord lobby, whose job it is to lobby on behalf of Starlight, of Caprite, of the biggest landlords in this province. Everyone agrees that rent is out of control. But instead of controlling the rent, Doug Ford and this PC government with Bill 60 is just looking to make it easier and faster to evict tenants who have lived in their homes for years, so that their big corporate landlords can skirt around rent control by jacking up the rents for the new tenant. That is what this bill is about. And now the PC government and Doug Ford want us to think this is about bringing balance to the landlord and tenant board.
It is.
Anyone who has spent 5 minutes at the landlord and tenant board knows that there is no balance at the landlord and tenant board. That tenants get eaten up for breakfast, lunch, and dinner at that place. And instead of bringing balance to the landlord and tenant board, where tenant applications take 3 to 5 times longer to be heard at the landlord and tenant board than landlord applications, because when a landlord wants to evict a tenant, their application gets heard in 3 months. When a tenant wants to have their grievance against their landlord, illegal rent charge, horrible molds, collapsing buildings and units, harassment, those applications take between 12 and 18 months to be heard at the landlord and tenant board. So let me be very clear to the fellow millions of renters in this province. This bill is not about balance to the LTB. This bill is about making it easier for the landlord you already know wants to kick you out so that they can jack up the rent for the new tenant. It's making it easier for them to do that. And I want to be clear to Doug Ford. On behalf of the York Southwestern Tenant Union and renters all over this province, keep your hands off our rights, keep your hands off our leases, and keep your hands off the Residential Tenancies Act.
We're getting eaten up for dinner, guys. And this
Provincial
is
legislation. Why would he keep his hands off the RTA?
don't do your
needs
job,
support.
Mr. Ford.
Keep your hands off our leases.
And to say that we're like, I would say that rent control is a symptom. I think a symptom of what the landlords are dealing with right now is like with, you know, we want to move into our property because we need to make the numbers need to make sense. But to say that we're going to do, and this is what I think a lot of people need to understand as well, is that Acorn is also messaging city councilors, guys, right now and trying to get them to introduce a rent eviction bylaw, because you know that there's a lot of properties that are aging and it's fallen apart for electrical and plumbing. Like, they do require the tenants to vacate in order to do those necessary safety repairs. But we can't do that because we have a lease that doesn't end. It's always going to be month to month. So they're always just want to make it look like it's the greedy landlords just trying to get more money. And many of our landlords are just trying to make it by with the increases from our property taxes, our insurance, our utilities, our maintenance costs, our legal cost. We've watched the landlord and tenant board increase the rates just to file at the landlord and tenant board. Meanwhile, in PEI, you can have your dispute heard for free. Other provinces are charging late fees. If you're a tenant and you don't pay your rent on time, the landlord can charge a late fee. It caps out, but it's still a late fee. How are we allowing someone to have this podium who is trying to discredit what the Ford government has done? And I don't think she realizes that there's been 15 years of bills that protect tenants. Over and over again, the fines for a landlord. Listen up, landlords. If you are doing any bad faith eviction, that fine to you is $100,000 as an individual and up to $500,000 as a corporation. He has put the most strictest protections in against these bad landlords that are out there. We're not denying that they're not out there, but when are you going to start protecting these small mom and pop landlords who are just trying to have a nest egg, something that they can fall back on because they do not have any pension. They don't get huge salaries, but they're providing something that I think big landlords can't provide. They're providing something that government can't provide. We're providing housing that you think a government's going to buy a single family home and rent that out, or a townhouse and rent that out? No. Do they get the service from a small landlord a lot faster than a big landlord or a nonprofit? I literally have someone who lives in government housing right now wondering what the process is to bring a nonprofit housing provider to the landlord and tenant board because they're not addressing her maintenance concerns. We see people in BC, they're tenants, and they're saying, listen, like, I may not pay market rent, but I pay the price elsewhere because she's living with cockroaches.
I saw that video. That video was absolutely insane. That's the single mother with the cockroaches and the mold in the basement.
Yeah.
I think that what people need to also focus on is who are making these types of complaints. What type of renter?
Say that again.
What type of renter are making these complaints? I don't think that there is a paintbrush in terms of tenants, period. There's different levels to it.
Oh, yeah.
And what I'm really trying to drive, where my mind is going is, especially seeing all of these narratives and then different types of tenants, quote unquote, I think people are forgetting that housing, yes, it's a human right, and that's super cute. And I think, and I think that worked 50 years ago, but housing is a business at this point. Well, and I think that people are missing out on that opportunity, as well as in regards to rent control. Out of the provinces in Canada, 5 are not rent controlled, and they don't have half as many issues as we do.
Yeah. Well, you know how she mentioned about how the landlord's applications are getting heard a lot faster than the tenants.
Sorry.
No. There's we're unfiltered here, my dear. We are unfiltered. You say what you need to say. Express yourself.
It's nonsense. It is infuriating.
I will say that they have prioritized non-payment rent applications because they know there's tenants that are going first and last, coming into a place and then not paying. I can say that they have prioritized that. But the reason why the government has prioritized that is because we do have municipal property standards, and tenants are calling their property standards. They're calling on their landlord. There is an adjudicated a hearing that I just heard of where the tenant is telling the adjudicator, my landlord did not shovel the snow. She's like, well, did you talk to your landlord? And she said, well, I called the city. And then the adjudicator's like, well, what did the adjudicator say? Or what did the city say? And they said, well, the landlord has 24 hours from the time when snow stops falling to shovel it. So that indicates that this is a vindictive tenant just trying to get money back on the rent. And that's what I'm hearing now on the streets, is that we have these tenants who are being coached by tenant unions to bring their landlord to the landlord and tenant board in order to get money back on their rent, making false applications. And AI is helping them to do it.
But that's what I mean by that's like what type of tenant? That's a scumbag right there.
But you know what? How many, they keep saying we have all these greedy landlords. But then again, if you look at the stats from 2023 to 2024, we have over 70,000 applications filed by landlords. The majority of that is non-payment of rent. And then you have tenant applications, just over 6,000 applications. Wow. And what's their number one application? Come on, Varun, you know it, baby.
Maintenance concerns, T2s?
Nope.
What is it?
Tenant rights.
Tenant rights, yes.
Tenant rights.
But, Kayla, talk about the minuscule rights that these tenants have. Do you want to know why there are 70,000 L1 applications and maybe a handful of tenant applications? The tenants don't need to use the LTB to seek recourse. The tenants can call the city bylaw department. You call city bylaw, and me as a property manager, I get a call from a bylaw officer. I'm right away. I'm out of bed. Good morning, sir. How can I make your day better?
How you doing?
How you doing, man? What can I get you? Absolutely. I'll meet you at the property in the next hour. We'll pick that garbage up right away. I don't want to piss off the bylaw officers, right? I cannot have my landlord clients getting impacted by maintenance problems or anything or something not being addressed. So if I don't address something and the tenant calls the bylaw officer, I need to act ASAP. So the tenant doesn't need to go to the LTB. They get their issue fixed right away. But hey, Kayla, you call your city councilor and you tell your city councilor, my tenant didn't pay rent this month. Can you help with that?
Nope.
They'll tell you, have a great day.
No.
You can't even call the police. You can't even call the police.
No.
I have my tenant causing thousands of dollars in damage. Sorry, this is a landlord and tenant board dispute. You know, like what happened to mischief? Whatever happened to like vandalism? Like whatever happened to like we can charge someone for stealing 39 pounds of apples, but we cannot charge anyone for stealing $50,000 in rent and causing fraudulent activity and fraudulent paperwork and leaving landlords high and dry. This is what people quite have to understand. And again, this message, if you are a taxpayer and you're listening to this YouTube video, you're paying for this mismanagement. You're paying for the landlord and tenant board. You're paying to house more people on government housing nonprofits because the landlords need to leave this industry. They're leaving and they know this part of it, right? So a lot of it has to go with there's a lot of protection. There's a lot of resources into protecting the tenants against these greedy landlords. But you know what? When we talk about property standards there, Varun, is that if you have a tenant that is doing something that is against bylaw, they're still coming after the landlord. They're not even coming after the tenant. So if a tenant has a broken down cars and they have dogs off their leash and dog feces all over the place and the noise complaints coming from neighbors, they're coming after the landlord regardless.
Yeah, I've told bylaw officers, look, I try my best. You know, I could take the tenant to the landlord tenant board. I could file an N5 application for the dog feces. But you know it's going to take me months to get to the board, and they're not going to listen to me. They're gonna tell me I'm harassing them the whole time. But so why don't I just give you a copy of the lease and the tenant's ID? You can see the tenant's name. Why don't you go ahead and lay the charge? Go ahead, give them the ticket. Go ahead, give them the fine. Why am I getting fined? I don't like. I pick up after my dog. Like, why do I have to now pick up after someone else's dog?
But
right?
then again,
like, me with the little bag walking around like 3 days before Christmas picking up feces, like just so my landlord client doesn't get, you know, in trouble with the city.
But this is the catch though. We actually have tenants that damage the crap out of their unit, and then they call bylaw to come in and nail the landlord to the wall. But then when the bylaw comes in and sees that this was at the fault of the tenant because the landlord is showing them pictures of what it was, now it's like, can I have that report from the city so that I can expedite my hearing at the landlord and tenant board? So it can be almost like an advantage. And even for our tenants taking down their smoke detectors, it was beeping because you can't cook. But like, you can't take it down, okay? Like, don't take it down. And if anything happened, God forbid, to that property, the landlords are the ones who have to show, this is when I did my last inspection. This is when it expired. It was working. You got to have your carbon monoxide detectors, your smoke detectors. Like, when do we start holding tenants accountable for their own behavior?
That's the piece. That is the missing piece. They need to be held accountable.
You know, the other a couple of months ago, I had to do a fire inspection at a 43-unit apartment building. I was managing it during a power of sale process. The bank was taking back this property from a slumlord. This guy didn't fix anything. These poor tenants. So we were in there trying to really like go door to door and like, here's a piece of paper, write down anything that's an issue. We got guys here that are ready to get to work. Things that previous landlord did not do, we were there doing. And so the city was like, hey, we got to do an inspection of all the smoke alarms. I'm like, sure, no problem. Give 24-hour notice to all the tenants, blah, 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 door to door. We start inspecting all the smoke alarms. I get to one apartment and the chain lock is on the door, right? So you can't open the door because I got the key, but the chain lock is on. So we're on the 4th floor. So obviously someone's in the unit, right? Unless you leaped off your balcony, you are in your unit, right?
Yeah.
And I told her, and I'm like, hey, you know, we got to do this fire alarm inspection. You got the notice. She's like, I'm at work, hon. I'm sorry. Come back tomorrow. I said, no, the chain lock is on your door. It's like somebody's in your unit. I could hear her she's whispering too. I'm at work. I'm like, you're in your bedroom right now. And she's like, no.
Did you say that?
Stop harassing me. Yeah, I'm like, you're in your bedroom. You're whispering for that reason. I'm right at your door. And she's like, stop harassing me. Long story short, Kayla, the city of Thorold, they told me that I failed to complete my mandatory fire alarm inspection in time, even though I did 45 out of 46 units. They were like, you didn't do all the units. This is your final warning. We're going to now go ahead and register our lien. They came down so hard on us, all because I didn't get that 46th unit. They were like, you should have gained access. And I'm like, they told me you should have cut the chain.
Varun's excited now. Like, you got
I almost knocked my monitor out. And they were like, you should have cut the chain. I said, I can't. You know, if I make an entry like that,
that's another problem.
I got a whole other set of problems now. Now Varun is on CP24 for the wrong reason. I can't do that, right? Like, and the city was not cooperative at all. Not cooperative at all.
You can't make it up. You can't make it up.
You can't make this stuff up.
No.
It's really hard. You try your best, but they're not on your side at all.
This is why I'm doing this YouTube channel. Like, if you guys are liking, like, put your thoughts into the comments, subscribe, share this video with your elected officials. Like, this is about sharing the stories, and you can't do that at council with 5 minutes. You know, when you're there delegating against another city bylaw that's happening. And you know what? Deep down, we hold landlords to such a high standard. And yes, we are a business. You know, people think with an investment, and even with, you know, Varun, like with everything that's in Bill 60 and what the messages, and especially Jackie, I loved your TikTok video. Like, while you're tickering away there, put your TikTok handles, both of you, in the comments so people can find you and give you guys some love, because I think what you guys are doing is great, and we need more advocates fighting against the misinformation, not only fighting against like the bad tenants that are out there, but it's almost like we're fighting against unions now. We're fighting against the NDP. Like, we're just small landlords. Like, what do you expect us to do? But if we are looking at all the information that is coming from Bill 60 and knowing that tenants still have their opportunity to file their own rental their own application at the landlord and tenant board for maintenance, it's just, you just can't bring it up if the landlord's already bringing you to the landlord and tenant board for non-payment of rent. They're going to tell you that you got to pay 50% of the rental arrears, because there's nowhere in the RTA that is telling you that you can withhold your rent. Besides the fact that your landlord didn't give you a copy of your standard lease, and at that you can only hold back 1 month. But we do have that in itself is bringing fairness, that you should be paying for it no matter if there's a maintenance. How do you expect the landlord to address your maintenance concern, but you're not giving him money to pay for it? Like, this is where rent in itself, and I'm glad, like, look, the comment, Brenda, she's like, non-payment of rent should be considered theft. And we have rent banks, guys. Like, we are not being cold-hearted here. We have rent banks. I've seen the organizations, I've seen the region pay out a tenant's unpaid rent to $10,000. And it's unsustainable. It was an unsustainable. You know, the tenant's going to stop paying again, but they paid that person out $10,000.
That's a complete waste of money. $10,000 on one tenant.
Waste of resources.
Yep. And these people are getting social
system. Where can I go if I don't pay my
mortgage?
mortgage?
That's self-esteem. Like, they just stole $10,000 from the public.
Where does that go?
I could really use some help with my mortgage. Like, come on.
Yeah, is there a mortgage bank?
I know a bunch of landlords that are struggling to pay the mortgage on multiplexes. Okay, so that's about 6 units. I know a sixplex out in Chatham. So those are 6 families out in Chatham that are at risk right now. Right. So let's help the small landlord with the property taxes, with the water bill that keeps getting unpaid by the tenants. Let's help him out so he can continue to keep providing some reasonable standard of care and housing for these tenants. Now he's on his own.
I sat down with a regional counselor who brought a cop. She's like, "Can you want to have a meeting with me?" And I show up and there's a cop there. I'm like, oh crap, what did I do? She's like, no. She's like, they're just helping someone who is living in their van in Home Depot's parking lot. They are not getting approved for government housing. Like, why? I'm like, because they left a debt with government housing. And until you pay off that debt, they're not going to let you back in. Right? Like, there needs to be some accountability when it comes down to people abusing the system. Like, even right down to tenants who are going through rent banks in itself. There's a limit. There's a limit of how many times you can bail them out. But people need to understand that, yes, we know times are tough, but we also know that there needs to be sacrifices to manage your own expenses and not expect a private landlord to subsidize you. And this is where we get into the consistency of late payments. Landlords, if you have a tenant who is not paying their rent on time and in full, like, you have the legal right to report that to the credit bureaus. You can do that through Front Lobby. You can report it to their portal. It gets shared with Equifax and Landlord Credit Bureau on a monthly basis so that you can let other landlords know and it can impact the tenants. But for the good tenants that are out there, you can do the same for them. You can help them build their credit. This is a win-win for the good landlords and for the good tenants. But now with Bill 60, they are really trying to harmonize in, like, what is going to be considered late payments. Because right now it all depends on what adjudicator you have. They're going to be like, it's 5 times, 6 times. Like, what if it's consecutive? Like what? And then you ask for a Section 78 in order to state that the tenant has to make their payments now on time and in full for the next year. And then they default, and then you have to go to the landlord and tenant board. Like, this is a lot of what's going to happen to the landlord and tenant board of unknown. And this is why he's making it with Bill 60 to say, this is how many times you can be late, guys, before your landlord can file that N8 application. There's nothing wrong with that. He's bringing accountability back in there. Are you going to get evicted right away? No. Can they file? Yes, they're going to file now, potentially in the 7-day mark. You're still going to wait for the sheriff. You still got to wait for your order. You still got to wait for the sheriff. So stop telling people that they're going to be evicted very quickly because of Bill 60, because it's not. And this is the message that the NDP are pushing out there. This is the message that CUPE is putting out there. This is the message that these tenant unions in Acorn are putting out there. You still have your stays. You still have your review. You still have legal aid. You have your legal aid being provided to you on the backs of the taxpayers, but don't abuse it. They're abusing it now. They're retaining tax-paying legal aid to give to tenants to just fight landlords, just for the sake of fighting it, just for the sake of entitlement. And that is the part where we need to snip it in the butt, because as taxpayers, we're already taxed to death. And that's what we have to consider when we work with Bill 60. What are you guys going to say on N8 before we jump into the list of people who've been through the landlord and tenant board?
The N8s, well, they haven't even decided how they're going to define N8, right? And how many months it's going to take to be a persistently late rent payment. Am I right on that?
We have that now, though. We have that now. We can do N8. We can still do persistently. It just all depends on the adjudicator, right? Is the adjudicator we usually say 5 to 6, and even at 5 to 6 times that you're late for your rent, if a landlord files an N8 application at the landlord and tenant board, they're putting the tenant on a 12-month payment plan, like probation. And even if they do skip that probation, just like the tenant unions are talking about somebody that was evicted for a penny or something like that, they were supposed to make their payment on the 1st of the month, not the 7th. So they're really fabricating what is really happening in the industry. And I'm sorry, a contract is a contract, and we should be following that contract. And just because, yes, you're a tenant, but why should that tenant get more protection against inflation? Why should that tenant be protected and subsidized by another citizen of Ontario when it's really their obligation to take care of themselves and to make sure that they have so much. They have the portable housing benefit. They have the rent relief banks. They also have child tax. They have social assistance on ODSP. Like, there's a lot of services and programs that are out there that are helping the tenant, but there is nothing for the landlords. The landlords who have everything on the line.
I took a tenant course in Toronto by a tenant union. Let me tell you, they're teaching them all the tricks. That's one of the comments. That's crazy. I want to take that course. Kayla, we should both take that course.
I know.
We got to join the other side. That's the only way, right?
I was curious. That's hilarious.
Well, and it's funny that we bring this part up now. So you remember the girl that was, and the guy, and the 2 girls standing next the NTP styles, right? And then we showed, our good friend from TVO showing what her rah is. She changed her shirt, guys. She changed her shirt. Let me show you.
Yeah.
68 food banks have signed on to an open letter across this province to Premier Ford and the Legislative Assembly of Ontario. As food banks and food programs across Ontario, we are on the front lines of the affordability crisis. And we are writing to you to say that we are scared, terrified, in fact, of the consequences that Bill 60 will have in the communities that we serve. Food bank use is at an all-time high. More than 1 million people in Ontario are using a food bank, and 1/3 of them are children. The high cost of rent is the primary reason people come through our doors. Every year, we call on the provincial government to provide some relief to renters, bring back rent control, stronger tenant protections, and investments in social and rent-geared to income housing. But every year, our calls go unanswered. At a time when people across this province are struggling with housing and food security crisis, Legislation has been proposed that would make things far worse for the millions of renters across this province working as hard as they can to keep a roof over their heads. Bill 60 will make it easier and faster to evict tenants across the board, reducing the number of days to catch up on rent, seriously limiting the defenses a tenant can rely on at an eviction hearing, and making it much harder to appeal an eviction order, eliminating the compensation to tenants for landlords' own use evictions, and creating a searchable evictions blacklist to make it impossible for evicted tenants to get back on their feet and find a new home. These are very dangerous changes to bring in when so many are hungry and barely hanging on to their homes. Weakening tenant rights will increase rents and undoubtedly drive more people to come to food banks. Just like the more than 1 million people in Ontario coming through our doors, we, the food banks and food programs across the province, are barely hanging on. Food banks across Ontario have seen our numbers skyrocket to record-breaking levels over the last 5 years. Our programs are at their limit, teetering at the very edge of what we can manage. We simply cannot afford more legislation that makes life harder for the people and the communities we serve because we cannot meet the need as it is. The risks are too high in the crisis we are in to bring in legislation like this. In the midst of unprecedented hunger and homelessness, we are asking you, the Government of Ontario, for a little grace. Our communities and our programs cannot withstand the impact that this legislation will bring. We're calling on this government to immediately rescind Bill 60. Sincerely, North York Harvest Food Bank and more than 68 food banks from across this province in Mississauga, in Brockville, in Burlington, in Scarborough, and
I think it's a social franchise, guys. Like, deep down, we got a girl who's the tenant union. She flips her shirt over to the food bank, and she's tying it all into the fact that she's making a private landlord a subsidy, a social service for the government with no compensation. Like, deep down, this is the fabrication. Like, if you are at the landlord and tenant board, you have these tools, you have these services for you. You should be on an order, just like landlords, our names are going to be there. If you're a landlord and you get brought to the landlord and tenant board because you were a slum landlord, guess what? It's fair game. But to say that the tenants are going to be homeless and that you don't have legal representation and you can't fight your appeal, he's knocking it down from 30 days to 15. If you did see an error that was happening at the landlord and tenant board, you would do that in that length of time frame. You have the legal representation to do it. So why are you coming at Mr. Doug Ford under the pretense that he's making tenants homeless, unless it was to create that narrative for the NDP, to make his opposition stronger? And this is where CUPE comes into fact. I love to find out like what I'm dealing with, and I have a video and I want to be able to show you. I try to keep these things at an hour because I know it's like we got things to do. We're landlords. Tenants are probably going to be calling for a maintenance issue right now, so I'm going to try to make it as quick as I can. But we do have more to Bill 60. I think we're not going to, like, we have to strike while the iron's hot. We're going to continue to keep talking about this, and I want you to keep talking about it as well. But I'm going to show this quick video of CUPE, who obviously shared Bill 60 and the type of behavior that these tenants were acting in there. And it's on their channel. Like, it's clearly on their channel. So they show the NDP showing the tenant. You can see there, if you can, so this is on the CUPE channel. This is on CUPE. But what really makes me concerned is that we have CUPE being a union for the public workers, having over 700,000 members. And this is a message that I found on their channel that I want to share with you. And I feel that there's a lot of anger and animosity towards Doug Ford. And I think what he did, he poked a fight with Doug Ford that, hey, let me get the tenants on board. Let me fund these tenants. Let me help them discredit what Doug Ford's doing and push the NDP agenda. So listen in.
Fred from CUPE Ontario. Tomorrow's election day in the province. That means it's our last chance to mark our ballots to get rid of Doug Ford and the Conservatives. Go to cupevotes.ca, scroll down. You can find our recommended candidates for you. You can find where you go to vote tomorrow. Please do everything you can. Get out to the polls. Mark your ballot. Tomorrow's the day. Together, we fire Doug Ford.
Well, that didn't work out too well for them, that whole campaign.
That was intense. That was
intense. Like, who are we really fighting here? You know what I mean? Like, we know that, like, I wish these tenants were out protesting about their food prices against the federal government with the tariffs that have rolled in. You know, like, where were the tenants fighting the federal government regarding their food prices? Don't blame your rent, because your rent is increasing based on your municipal government, who is increasing your property taxes. You have your property taxes increasing. You have your insurance increasing. You have maintenance increasing. You have your losses increasing. Any tenant that's out there paying a price for rent right now, we have to consider that the landlords are trying to recoup their losses by the next tenant. So this is where our good tenants are paying the price for bad ones. So when are we going to wake up and understand that these people are trying to run this socialist government that never works? I believe I put something out there in my article with, like, it's a wake up call for Bill 60, not dangerous. And we talk about how, you know, the mice don't understand why the cheese is free. Same thing goes with socialism. Like, there needs to be a fine line to where we see ourselves and run this province, run these cities as a business. I know we want to be able to help people and we want to stop people from being homeless. No one should be living in these tent encampments. There's actually groups of people out there trying to stop municipalities from removing tent encampments. Like, what's wrong with you? These people should not be living in a tent encampment. They shouldn't be out there in the cold. You're putting them in harm's way of living in tent encampments, but you're trying to stop the city from removing them. And I can tell you right now, from speaking with many elected officials, that there is room for them in the shelters. There is funding available to put people in motels. Taxpayers are being charged $3,000 per month to house one person in an emergency shelters. Our hospitals are going up in cost because we're housing homelessness within there. We understand the ramifications of dealing with this. And we have these organizations profiting off of it. How many organizations do we know of within our city that do the exact same thing? We're going to take a tenant. We're going to put them on the housing waiting list. That waiting list is between 10 to 30 years. And I used to say 10 to 20 because it was like housing, the waiting list for housing.
That long? That's absurd.
30 years of supportive housing. It's supportive housing now is 30 years. We have nonprofits that are struggling now to provide housing, but at that, they're still putting units on the market for $486,000 per unit. I don't know how that's affordable, but the landlords can do it for a lot cheaper. Anyone knows that if government is getting contractors in, it's going to be 3 times more than what a private landlord would do. But this is the type of mess
cheaper than the government can.
We would, but again, we're not doing it right now because we need to know that we have a justice system. We got to know that we have a justice system that is balanced and it's not stocked with adjudicators that come from a social justice background to help people. We're not going to be dealing with the delays. We need a black and white justice system so that tenants can know what to expect and not think that if they use ChatGPT, they can come up with the best storyline that they could possibly can to adjourn their hearing or drag their eviction out for months. We're seeing stories from landlords where tenants are walking in with a 65-inch screen TV while not paying their rent for 8 months. We're not talking about kicking out people that can't pay. We're talking about kicking out the people that won't pay. Sorry, guys, I had to go on a little tangent there, but I want to thank everyone for watching. And you know what? Like, I do this, like, everyone's like, oh my God, does she have a bad tenant? I'm like, no, I haven't had a bad tenant. I had one. It was like a good, relationship, husband, wife, buddy screwed up. I got stuck with him, and I made sure I reported them to the credit bureaus, right? But right now I'm very concerned with the motivation behind the NDP. I'm concerned about this CUPE. I'm concerned about these tenant unions that can go from a very colorful tenant union t-shirt to now being the voice for the food banks, right? Like, we're not shocked that, you know, people are going to food banks, but I can also tell you that there's people abusing the food banks as well. Because why go to the grocery store and pay peanut butter for $7 when you can go to the food bank and get it for free? So let's not joke ourselves here about by what's going on. And I think as if a media was able to take this information that we're sharing and put us on the wire, I think we're going to wake a lot of people up. But you can see through the media that they're like, you mentioned landlords and developers in your speech, but did you speak with tenants? I can tell you, honey, he's speaking with tenants because those tenants are ringing their phone and their emails off the hook. Like, they are speaking with tenants. We've been screaming for 15 years and we still struggle to get the voice. So don't think just because Tony Irwin from FROPO was standing next to Rob Flack when he made this announcement that the government is in the pocket of the landlord lobbyists. It's anything but. So we want to make sure that we're bringing this highlight to everyone today, and just know that Bill 60 does need its royal assent. It's its last blessing for everybody. And you know what? This is the wake-up call. This is the wake-up call to the tenants who won't pay. This is the wake-up call to our elected officials who want to play smoke and mirrors, who want to make a fake narrative to gain votes for your next election. And this is a wake-up call to our municipalities who think that they can introduce vacancy tax and eviction bylaws, and who think that they can make landlords responsible for their tenants' delinquent utility bills. And this is where Bill 60, and there's a comment that's in here now about Bill 60 with water. And yes, I'm actually willing to try something, because you know what? I've seen my city make landlords responsible for their tenants' delinquent utility bills. They refuse to put additional meters onto these new developments where there is multifamily units happening. We're limiting our customer base, but increasing those rates to the taxpayer who are paying their water and sewage, because we don't have enough customer base, because they're not putting enough meters on people's houses. So I would like to see what it's going to be like with Bill 60 and see if they can keep things more reasonable and keep it clean and keep it safe. And you know what? I think if we're going to trust one level of government, why can't we trust the province and just know that the province is going to oversee what this corporation is going to do? But we have to try. We have to try. We have to be loud. And I'm looking forward to partnering with different landlords associations right across this province, because I think our voices need to be heard, and we're afraid to show up in the gallery. I ain't showing up there, guys. I ain't. Like, I'm sorry. I love you all. I want to advocate for you and tell the truth. And I'm a little nervous because landlord licensing is coming to the belly of the beast in Hamilton on December 2nd. Shout out to our Hamilton Landlords Association, who is going down there to advocate to stop landlord licensing from being spread not only in the certain wards, because they're discriminating against the students right now. They want to make this wide. And it's funny that the wide part of this landlord licensing is that it's costing taxpayers $2 million to run that pilot program, and they're short $1.7 million. So to run this on a city-wide, knowing that the bad landlords are not going to apply, but the good ones are, you're just driving up rents. You're driving up rents, and then having the NDP tell us that we are the greedy little landlords. Meanwhile, you keep driving up our costs due to policies and red tape. Guys, we're almost at the hour. I know we want to continue. Like, everyone, please, like, if you're going to call me, you're going to have to text me first, because I got like some stalker. So please give me a text. Give me a text. Let me know you want to talk. I'm always up for a conversation. You can also email me, olwlandlords@gmail.com. I am obviously on Facebook. I am on TikTok now. I am on LinkedIn to make sure that we are getting our message across from every platform. We do need a call to action. We need to support these small landlords associations in each municipality that's out there. And we need to listen to one another. And this is what I love doing. And I'm getting everyone's messaging out to as as many people, but municipal government is coming, guys, and you need to make sure that your voices are heard, not just at the polls, but use your platforms. Let these elected officials know that we are a landlord that is providing the necessity that government can't even do right now. Jackie, what are you going to say? Like, if you had your elected official in your face right now, what would you tell them?
Honestly, I think that we're on the right track and balance is needed. And I think that it's just short and sweet. Balance is needed in this system that is broken, and that is what we need to focus on. Affordability is an issue on all parts. It is such a huge conversation. It's not just landlords versus tenants. We all need to work together because we all need each other. And I think that it's just, if we all could just get on the same page of that and understand what this business truly is, I think we would be in a better state. That's all my focus: balance and peace between both parties.
Nice. Varun, what do you got to say?
If I had an elected official in front of me, I'd say 30 days. That's what I want. If a landlord brings an application against a tenant, I need a hearing in 30 days. If
that's our Christmas wish.
Christmas wish. Yeah, that's my Christmas wish. You put that in my stocking. If a tenant brings an application against their landlord, same deal, 30 days. The tenant should have their applications heard in just as quick of a time. I don't think tenants should be waiting 3-5 years. That's ridiculous. 30 days to hear any issue, and that's more than enough time to prepare for your hearing. So if you need to go to the board, they need to give us a hearing in 30 days.
And we have like the tools. We have that portal. That portal can allow that to happen.
Great. It works. It helps. It's convenient. I've been able to upload documents, and the adjudicator's like, got it, Varun. Thank you. Looking at it now, and I'm like, wow, look at that. The system works.
Just like they took your photo.
We need to just speed it up a bit. That's it.
Amen, brother. I love that. I think it's just about, because there's tools. As long as the tools are able to be accessible to the tenants at the same time frame, let's work it. And this is where there's multiple ministers of the government that need to work together. It's the Minister of Social Services, it's the Minister of Housing, it's the Attorney General. They all need to be communicating, and they need to communicate with their municipalities. And I want our government right now to wake up their municipalities and say, hey, what are you doing? You're doing our job right now. Step back. Like, that's the provincial job. Why are you guys trying to get kudos to where kudos are not due? And this is where I've asked our landlords, I want you to tell landlords about us. I want you to share this video, share the Ontario Landlords Watch YouTube channel, share it with as many people. Tell them about a landlord association that's in your municipality. I want you to support them. I want you to help them grow. I want you to reach out to all of these conservative members who just voted, and in the intimidation of tenants who voted for Bill 60, follow them on social media, give them a like, give them a kudo, let them know we appreciate what they do. We may not be there in person, but they need to know that they are representing another group of people that are just a little bit too afraid to do it. And I want to follow the message of Doug Ford right now. I want to call on the audit from these organizations and shame on our NDP for discrediting Doug Ford for calling upon that. He is giving taxpayers' money to these organizations. I would assume you would want to make sure that the money that is being spent is well worth it. And for her to make it look like it's about attacking food banks, I can see why. We have a tenant union being the voice of the food bank as well. But we have to understand that money is tight, and we need to watch where money is being spent, and we want to make sure that it's being spent in the right areas. Because I know for a fact that there is an organization that deals with housing and mental health and addiction, and they're spending $20,000 on marketing material. I'm sorry, if your services are very much needed, why are we spending $20,000 on marketing material? Why are we having your members of your organizations attack small landlords at municipal government? There's a lot of questions that need to be answered, and I'm glad that Mr. Doug Ford has came out publicly to say this is a process. The process is going to continue. He's not going to go ahead and ask someone to audit. And I want to leave tonight with this message, because obviously he's in the heat of the moment, and I don't want anyone to think that Doug is attacking his opponents. just listen for a minute before we bow out for tonight.
When you talked about auditing groups that give money to CUPE and Acorn.
Yeah, well, what we have to do, and it's just standard operating procedures, that all groups get audited and to make sure they're spending the money the way they said they're going to spend it. But I'm not directing anyone. I'm going to make sure the process just continues. It's not up to me to say audit this, audit that, but we audit everyone we can that receives money from the government. And it's just making sure that what they say they're doing.
It sounded like you were specifically targeting your opponents, like CUPE, Acorn, those groups.
Well, you know something? I just want the process to move forward and make sure that when you receive money from the government, you better be spending it the way your application said you're going to be spending it.
Premier,
do you regret
telling the protester yesterday to get a job?
No, I'm focused on people looking out there to get a job. I'm focused on people that are working every single day. You know, I've seen these folks all the way back to my city hall days. They're professional protesters, and it's unbecoming of anyone to go in there and act the way they did. The NDP signed some people up. They come in, they should be held responsible. I can tell you, if we brought our supporters in, they acted that way, oh my goodness, it's a whole different story.
Yeah, but you're the premier for all Ontarians, including professional protesters. Is it becoming of the office to tell anyone to get a job?
Well, you know something, at the end of the day, they do have a job, by the way. They're getting paid by, the groups that are in
Guy's
there.
a boss.
But I'm focused on the people that are looking for
I
a
love
job,
this guy.
that
I really
are out
do.
there, that have a job, and they're working hard. So that's what I believe in.
Last question.
Can you just be more specific on what audits you're talking about? Are there specific programs?
Well,
that they're getting money through that are being audited?
any money that's delivered to any organization, they may get audited, and they have to be held accountable if they aren't making sure they deliver what they say they're going to do. One more question.
So these, though, they're advocates who are advocating for the rights for people who are renters. They don't like your bill. That's why they were there. They were upset because this was fast-tracked. Like, do you have anything to say to them?
Well, number one, our rent has never been lower over the last 40 months, so we want to make sure we create more of a supply.
Yeah.
But the only people that have to be worried about, and I got thousands of calls of people that they get renters in their basement apartment and they aren't leaving. And then they destroy the apartment and they start threatening the people that are renting it. They should be worried. You don't pay your rent and you're going to be evicted. I took the toughest laws in the country protecting tenants, and especially big corporations. If you mistreat a tenant, you're getting a fine of $100,000 to $500,000. What I'm focused on are the mom and pops that have saved their life savings to go out and maybe buy another condo or rent out their basement apartment to have additional income. And there's professionals that go in there and they won't move out. And so we have to balance it. But I'll always protect tenants, but I'll always keep an eye on bad landlords. There's bad apples in both, to be honest with you. You pay your rent, the landlords treat the tenants fairly, and there won't be any problem. So I'm going to keep an eye on things, and we're going to create more supply because there's thousands and thousands of units that people are terrified to rent out right now. Even the builders, the developers, didn't want to build any more rentals because they were worried they weren't going to get paid. That's how bad it is. And it's probably the worst in the entire country. A lot of them are taking their investment and moving it to other provinces. So I just want to create a balance for tenants and landlords, get rid of the bad apples on both sides, and create more housing for everyone.
That was an awesome message to end. I really don't know what I'm doing when I do these things. I have lots of videos that I want to show you, and I'm glad that it kind of worked out the way it was because he knows what's happening, and I think he got a good taste of what he is expecting right now with the way that the tenants are reacting. And I'm hoping that this is just a big crumb and that we have more different bills to go through the loopholes because there's many, many loopholes. And landlords, we're excited, but don't be making videos that everyone's going to be evicted quicker, like as fast as we think we can. We're just closing some of the loopholes. And at the same time, it's nice to be finally heard as these housing providers of Ontario. We are not greedy landlords. We are someone who can indeed reach out and work with payment arrangements. We know that tenants fall underneath hard times, but
I had that today.
Yeah.
I had that today. One of my tenants, she had reached out and she's like, can I pay you half of my rent today and the remainder on the 11th?
Yep.
No problem.
Yeah.
That's fair. No problem. Communicate. Let's talk. No problem. So fair is fair. That's it.
But you know what, guys? We have to keep supporting our conservatives. We've seen the message before with, wanting to put more restrictions onto the landlords with the NDP. Liberals, they're kind of quiet, but they still have that same thing where they want to introduce rent control in between tenancies. And you know what? I love the fact that Mr. Doug Ford was able to identify that there is a lot of mismanagement of funds that could go towards more tenants, but keeping them housed. And in order to do that, there is needing to make sure that there's accountability and transparency that is working within, having money, taxpayers' money being sent to these organizations that are supposed to provide services for education and advocacy and housing and mental health and addiction. And I think this is it's a social franchise for a reason. So I'm glad that he's taking part in this. I want to thank everyone for tuning in a little bit after that hour mark, but this is something that I think we needed to get off our chest. And I can't thank you, Jackie and Varun, to being a part of this. And I'm excited to get you guys back on again. And I want to thank everyone who has been using their platforms to share this information, to be an advocate for the housing industry, because deep down, our taxpayers cannot afford to keep building, managing, maintaining, and subsidizing government housing. We need these private landlords, just as we need our big landlords, just like we need our nonprofit housing providers. But there needs to be sustainable housing. I don't think anyone can understand what affordable housing really means anymore, because we can't keep things affordable for our homeowners. But what we do need to know is that we need to support the elected officials who have our best interests at heart, and that is going to be our conservatives. I want to thank everyone. Subscribe to the Ontario Landlords Watch YouTube channel for our next live. I really don't know when they happen. I know I have a lot of people who are wanting to share their stories, and I will be lining them up. I want to take a break right before Christmas so that I can get some cooking, baking done as well. But I think 2026 is going to be our year. So don't let this conversation stop. Keep striking while the iron is hot. And I want to thank each and every one of you for watching and staying with us, and keep sharing this message. And thank you for being a part of Ontario Landlords Watch. Happy renting.
Have a good night, folks.